This is the plaintiff, Jerome Maida. He says he was hired by his co-worker, the defendant, to house sit and take care of her pets, and the woman is stiffing him. That's right, she agreed to pay him for his services. He spent 10 days at her house, taking care of her dog and cat, and he deserves to be paid the $300 he's owed. And he's suing. This is the defendant, Laura Toham. She says the plaintiff used her car while she was away and put almost 800 miles on it. She never gave him permission to use her car while he was house sitting. He betrayed her trust. And when she got home, she arrived to a huge mess of hair and dirt in her place. Oh, him? No way. She's accused of not paying for services rendered. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $1,100 for car usage and killing her plants.
All parties, please raise your right hand. The People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Milianzo presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Maida, you are suing Ms. Toham for $300 for pet sitting you say she owes you. You're counterclaiming against him $1,100 in damages and usage of your car. Let me hear from you first, Mr. Maida.
Okay. I house sat for a total of 19 days, 3 in which Ms. Toham was in a hospital, 16 in which she was in Idaho. The 16 days was from November 1st to the 16th of 2021, and I forget the exact date in October because it was very quick.
And what was it you helped her out with?
As far as getting to the hospital, as far as picking her up from the hospital, as far as taking care of her house and her pets while she was in the hospital.
Okay, and what pets are we talking about?
Small cat and a small little like dog, small little like poodle-like dog.
Okay. All right. So had there been a discussion between the two of you about what you would be paid to do that?
Well, I just based on previous times I had pet sat. I had pet sat for like 10 days before, and I got him $200. This was a total of 19 days. And, you know, I just $300 would be more than fair.
Okay. But was there any discussion between the two of you about getting paid and about whether you would be paid?
Not until after she got back.
Okay.
And she said that because I put 700 miles on her car, that I would get about half.
Did you put 700 miles on her car?
I did not.
Okay. Why was she saying that you did?
I'm thinking that she was looking for an excuse not to pay. And also, I did put some miles on her car. Back and forth to the airport was a total of 120 miles.
Back and forth to the airport was 120, and you did that twice, right?
No, to the airport, I know, it was like 60 round trip. So I did
60
that
round trip. All right, but she set the odometer at zero for the trip odometer part at zero because she had a suspicion that you were using her car. Did she tell you that?
Well, I had told her I used my car. I had told her I had to use my car.
Your car or her car?
Her car.
Oh.
Because in one of the other pieces of evidence, it would have taken me an extra. I had just started a new job that I'd been trying to get the last week. And I would have taken me 7 extra hours using public transportation to drive. And I want to be back because I remember the one time when I was taking care of the dog, and the dog, I hadn't been able to get back in a while, and the dog was literally shaking because it was trying to be a good dog and not pee all over the place. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to make sure that I took care of her.
So did you speak with her beforehand and say, I'm going to take your car to and from work?
No, I did not say that. No.
All right. Were you two friends?
Yes.
How did you two meet?
We met at Walmart.
Like just crossing each other's paths at Walmart?
Yeah, well, she was in front of me in line, and we started talking about, she was writing a book, and I'm a writer, and so we got to talking about different things, and we became friends. She even invited me over to 4th of July. So, I mean, it's really disappointing.
Okay. He says you owe him for dog sitting and cat sitting and house sitting. What say you to that, Ms. Toham?
I say that originally we did not have a discussion about how much I would pay him, but yes, I had thought in my mind that I would pay him $300. It was about what I can afford. I'm a single mom, and I was grateful of his services for that particular time when I went to Idaho. And so I planned to pay him, but I did have a suspicion in the past when I was gone before that he was using my car. So like you said, I set the speedometer to 0. I didn't tell him because, of course, I don't want him to know that I'm checking to see. And on the phone while I was in Idaho, I told him, do not use my car. He actually does not have a driver's license. And I realized
Do you have
that
a driver's license, Mr. Maida?
I am currently, no.
So when I got back and I saw that he had put it was 732 miles, which I took away from knowing that he probably, he did. Even though I knew he didn't have a license, I did have him pick me up from the airport.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. You're way above. You're totally insulted that his license was suspended for. Did you ever ask why don't you have a license to find out?
He told me it was a mix-up because of his father's same name.
Okay, all right. So you have him without a license, dropping you off and picking you up because it's convenient for you. Then, all right. So go on.
Yes. And so when I right away, I talked to him and said, hey, you just put 700 miles on my car. I don't think that's fair. I told you not to drive. He never said anything. He never apologized. He never gave a reason. He didn't explain there was an emergency or he needed to come back and make sure that he was here to take care of the dog or whatever. He never gave me any kind of excuse. He said nothing. And I said, well, I'll pay $150. That was before I got into my house. When I got into my house, all my plants were dead. He was supposedly living or staying here at my house for the 2 weeks because it actually was pleasurable for him because he's having problems with his roommates at his house. So I would have been fine with him coming, checking on the dog, taking him out.
Did you ever go over with him what you expected in terms of taking care of the house?
No, I did not. And I know that's my bad. I actually said that to him. I said, it's my bad that I didn't communicate that I would want you to water my plants if you're staying here for 2 weeks. It's just a courteous thing that I would have done, so I can't expect that. I didn't voice that.
Yeah, like people who don't have their own plants maybe don't quite get it. I mean, and they're not even looking to see how the plant is doing, and they don't even notice that the plant is wilting because they're not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, all right. Now, you have a counterclaim against him for $1,100. Tell me about that.
Well, we had been meeting. He's doing a project for me. We met at Walmart, and I hired him. So that's a different issue. You hired him
to do what? To ghostwrite a book?
Yes.
All right. So that means you're writing a book, but you have help from someone who says that they're an author in order to write the book. And what happens?
Well, for that, I actually have to do another claim because he breached a contract and lost all my recordings after a year.
Okay, I understand that's a separate case, but I can see from the text that that's when everything goes to hell. So I'm interested in learning a little bit about this. How did you find out that he had lost the recordings?
Well, I was starting to make moves with my branding coach, and we were reaching out to different organizations because my book is it's going to be a good story. It's going to help hopefully a lot of women and girls overcome traumas, so my recordings were very personal. And I was excited that we had already finished the interviews. I was meeting with branding coaches and starting to do things for branding, podcast plans, things like this. So
how many hours of interviews had you concluded?
Well, a year, and within those years, that year, probably about 50 hours, possibly.
50.
Yes. It's more than one book, actually.
And what happened? How did he lose the tapes?
He just out of the blue texted me that his problems that he was having at his house, they stole the recordings.
Who's they?
His property manager or landlord or something, I don't know. But that's my personal story, so it was a huge violation.
Mr. Maida, you want to respond to that?
Yes, briefly. I feel this is retribution for, this one case is retribution for this.
Wait, which case is retribution for which case?
I believe that, she's countersuing, and the reason she's not paying me is because she's upset about the book, which are separate things.
Right, but
I mean,
you're
I
the
still
one who
did the
went to
work I
court
was-
and filed this lawsuit. And you filed the case in late February, early March. You still had not been paid for October, November, and you hadn't filed a case yet. When you filed the case is when you two get into the argument about the tapes, right?
Well, that's when I realized I was never, I would realize I was never going to get paid.
She paid you $900 so far, correct, to help her ghostwrite. What's the actual agreement between you guys?
Originally, it was $1,500, $900 before, and then $600 when it was done.
Okay,
Yeah,
and what
and
experience do you
originally-
have as an author?
I wrote a column for 17 years for the Philadelphia Daily News.
Okay.
I've written biographical comic books for a company called Blue Water, and I wrote a graphic novel on Hunt for Osama bin Laden called Geronimo.
I have two children very into graphic novels. I don't get the allure, but apparently they're very popular. So it isn't until many months later that everything hits the fan. And what happened to her tapes? It's such a personal thing to have stolen.
Well, Your Honor, but one thing again, irregardless of what happens to the tapes-
Regardless, there's no such word as irregardless.
Okay, regardless, thank you. I should know that. Regardless of what happened to the tapes, the book was not supposed to be due until November. I specifically got another recorder, and I was willing
But what
to do
did
more
happen
work.
right, but maybe she doesn't want to go through the trauma again. I presume this is about trauma and
Exactly.
overcoming trauma?
Exactly.
and-
Right.
Yes.
So, but
Okay,
let
but-
me ask you, what do you think happened to the recordings?
I don't know. The only people with access to my room were either an exterminator, property manager, or the landlord, and I don't know because there's been issues there. So I don't know. But
Was
my
anything
issue
else
is-
missing besides the recordings?
Not that I know of.
How
Not
would
that
they
I've
know to
seen,
take the
thankfully.
recordings? Were the recordings all inside of the recorders?
No, it was a digital recorder.
It was one digital recorder,
It was two digital recorders.
and they were filled with the story.
No, they weren't filled with the stories because that's one thing that was blatantly false that Ms. Tolan said, that there was 50 hours worth of, we had never gotten anywhere close to that point because every single time when I was able and more able to come and do an hour's worth, we might have done maybe 10 hours worth of
Okay.
recording. So that's just a falsehood.
Was that
beyond
the
belief.
beginning of the recordings, or was that all of the recordings
No,
that
that
were
was
going
all
to?
of them.
That was all of them.
Because again, obviously after an hour or so, it is, tough things to talk about. I do
Yeah.
acknowledge that, but it was always an excuse. It was always, I don't feel well. I have to pick up the kids. I have to just, so now she finally has a job and she says she doesn't have time. I went home to Pennsylvania to take care of my mother and see her pass away. And I knew I was going to be quarantined before I saw her. And I said, that would be a perfect time. Let's get this done. I mean, I'm willing to do it. I'm not saying I'm not going to get it done, and let's work something out. And she didn't want to hear it. Immediately, it was like, you broke our agreement. Like, no, I'm willing to get it done.
All right, let me
I
hear from you, Ms. Toem, on the 1,100. You have decided to, rather than deduct 150 from what you were going to pay him to house sit, you have decided you're going to charge 800 for 16 days of car rental and impose a rental agreement where there was none. You've also decided that you're going to sue for $150 for brake pads. How are you pinning that on him? What did he do to wear down your brake pads? It takes a long time to wear down brake pads.
Well, I have a suspicion, Judge, that he actually took my car to San Diego, and that's probably why there's 700 miles on it. And the brake pads were fine until...
Who's taking care of your pets if he takes the car to San Diego?
I don't know. He had asked me to hire a U-Haul for him in the couple months prior, and he needed to take some items to an ex-relationship or something. So I'm thinking 700 miles. Why would you?
Okay, but how does that justify him buying you new brake pads?
I just threw it in there just because I knew that I had to replace them.
And then $50 for plants. I saw where you texted back, oh, the plant perked back to life oh, this other plant perked back to life. See, all they need is water. So did he actually kill any plants, or you're just like, it's kind of 50
Yes.
bucks for the pain and suffering of the plant? Like, I'm trying to figure it out.
No, there was 4 plants replaced. I actually have them there. I had bought new plants. Yes, I didn't send a picture of those new plants though, but I do
Okay.
have them.
All right. Have you guys spoken to each other since all of this happened in February, or you guys are no longer friends and you haven't spoken to each other?
No, she hasn't. She immediately was that I'm a scammer and this, and I don't take kindly to name calling, especially when, again, I'm willing to do a job, because all of a sudden now it's not 100% convenient for her to do it right now, and she doesn't want to do the work over again. She wants.
Yeah,
She's the one
most
who
people
wants
don't want to
doing
do the
book.
work over again. Well, I saw in the text that her basic premise was then get it back from them. Like, she wanted you to contact the property manager, to confront
But I
them.
don't know for a fact who has it.
I know. I mean, I can understand being angry at him not safeguarding them. You say backing it up. I'm not sure where you'd back it up when it's, I mean.
Well, actually, Judge, if I may,
Yeah.
I have hired a new ghostwriter, and she does back up her work.
Okay.
And I was actually not planning on, even though I'm probably have a good chance of winning a case against him, I didn't have time to be in the negative, but I just wanted to move forward. And so actually, she does back up her work, and she provides me chapters every month. So she's not just waiting a whole year of doing the interview. She's writing as the interviews are taking place. So it's a different experience. And like your saying goes, sometimes when you pay cheap, you get cheap. And so that's what I feel happened here.
You know?
Yeah.
Just getting back to the house sitting now, the idea that they agreed upon, like I said in I believe I presented as some evidence, to house sit a pet is a responsibility. Okay, and most people.
Mr. Maida, the only thing I'm concerned about, I know what I pay when I pay a pet sitter, and I pay a pet sitter a lot more than this. But that's not relevant to me. The only thing that's relevant is what's the agreement I'm supposed to be enforcing. And the agreement I'm supposed to be enforcing is she pays you what she thinks she feels like paying you. That's the agreement, because you get to stay at her house, and apparently that's desirable, and apparently you get to use the car, and whatever else. So I don't care what the going rate is, I care what your agreement is. So it sounds to me like you were expecting $300 only because after you did it, she said she was gonna pay you $300, not because you actually talked about it beforehand. And then she says, well, I've decided that because you used my car so much, I just want to pay you less. I'm thinking about $150. And you're like, yeah, fine, $150. And then she doesn't pay you that. I think you're entitled to the $150. On your lawsuit against her, I am going to award you $150. Now, on your counterclaim against him, you want to create a car rental situation in a situation where there is none. Your first gut 4 months earlier, 3 months earlier, whatever it was that you were just going to reduce the house sitting fee.
Yes.
And that was good enough for you, but then now that he sued you, now it's $800. That doesn't create an $800 obligation where there is none. You have no evidence on the brake pads, and the only evidence I see on the plants is that they perked back to life. So on your counterclaim 0, of course, you're free to sue him for, losing the tapes and whatever. That's your business, and whether you want to proceed with that or move on, that's up to you. That has nothing to do with my case here. But on the plaintiff's case against the defendant, $150.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge.
So in this pet sitting case, the plaintiff is going to get money. Not what he wanted $300. He's only going to get $150. Mr. Maida, let me ask you a quick question. You were 19 days at her house for $150. That sounds like you work pretty cheap. That's not much money, is it?
No, I'm a little disappointed by that. I'm glad that at least I'm getting something, and I'm glad that she obviously saw that, it's an arrangement that she should honor to some extent. And I'm, obviously definitely glad she saw no merit in her countersuit. So, I'll learn for next time. I thought she was a friend, and unfortunately she showed her true colors.
Ms. Toham, we didn't hear how everything worked out with the pets. Were they okay? The car was one big issue.
The pets were alive. You're right. The pets were alive. So I guess that's the good outcome. Yes.
That's kind of the most important thing, because that's why you had him stay there anyway. I don't know. Yeah. Interesting how you meet somebody in Walmart and just start chatting, and all of a sudden they're living in your house. That's something else. Well, in any event, you have to pay him $150. How about you? Okay with that?
I am, and I will be doing my own suit for the other issue. So we'll see what
that's a whole different ballgame.
Thank you.
All right, Harvey, what do you think?
Okay, so riddle me this, Doug. If somebody sues somebody for something, but that other person says, well, you owe me money too, it is called something that relates to Cardi B. The answer is offset. You are allowed to offset what you owe by what somebody else owes you.
Marilyn, are you an optimist or a pessimist? What do you think?
Well, I think I'm a happy person.
Okay.
But
that suggests optimism.
That suggests optimism.
Right.
But I am also very much a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I'm very much Jorge Milian's daughter.
Right.
And
which means you're cynical and you don't trust anybody
I don't
ever.
trust anybody. I just assume someone is trying to stick it to me at all times.
All the time.
All the time. So I'm just always looking to make sure I'm not taken advantage of.
Usually they are.
Because they are. So it's kind of, I don't know whether I would call that a pessimist. Sounds so negative.
Yeah.
Luck favors the prepared. And I just prepare all the time for the wrong or bad thing happening.
Right.
Does that make me a pessimist? I don't think so. But
I think you're generally optimistic, I guess.
What about you?
I think the same. I'm pretty satisfied and happy with my life, so that
you should be.
That suggests optimism, right?
Right.
And I'm always looking for something good to come out of the bad situations and looking for a bright side.
I think that you assume it's all going to go as planned.
I do. I'm more of a Pollyanna. Like
you
I
are.
just like, oh yeah, what could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
Everything will go right. Yeah.
Right.
I just assume everything's going to go right.
Once you get the impression that something could go wrong, when it becomes a reality to you, this is how you behave.
Right.
Oh my God! This is a catastrophe of biblical proportions. It's like the sky is falling.
Right.
It's bizarre because you were otherwise so happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
But that's true. What I just said.
Every now and then, a reality slaps me across the face. That's
right. Yes, but then you overreact. It's a disaster of biblical proportions. The kids make fun of you about that all the time.
They do, those rotten little, those little snots. To straighten them out.